Hey, welcome to part two. I just gave you a very quick explanation of what Russell is trying to accomplish with his theory of definite descriptions and how he's trying to solve the problem of names. And I tried to clarify how he's different from Frege and from Meinong. So there's a lot of debate and discussion regarding his notion. Everybody thinks that it works, I think, for the present King of France being bald, but there are other cases that are very troubling that we seem to get from cases of definite description. So Strawson, for example, actually names his article on referring almost as a joke, like he's being kind of ironic. He does not think that definite descriptions work. Um, and he thinks that perhaps we should look at the present King of France is bald not as a false claim, but as a failed sentence. So it's a misfire. It's something that people do when we misspeak or when we're confused. So what Strawson is doing in this article is shifting our center of our discourse to people using language. So words don't refer, people refer. Meaning is about conventions regarding personal and cultural use of language. It's not about connecting to an object. And on the one hand, this is great. And with this article, Strawson opens up discussions of pragmatics for the first time. And I know that everybody who's been talking has been doing this, right? People have been very, very good hashing through Santa Claus saying, well, we've got cultural definitions and we've got historical definitions. We have personal thoughts and feelings, right? There are all these things. Strawson opens this up for us. So now we have a way to deal with this that is not just about the object. Strawson emphasizes that human beings are fallible, and we're often unaware of the logical implications of the statements we make. So really, no one on earth who is using language and who is confused about whether or not there is a present King of France is actually saying there is one and only one King of France, and that person, is bald and blah blah blah. We don't do that. People are much stupider than that when they use language. So Strawson is saying, it's very nice that Russell is trying to straighten all out for us, but in fact, this doesn't map onto language as we know and understand it. So Strawson brings up another really good example that shows that pragmatics really are influential when we're using language. So what about claims like the table is full of books? So if somebody says, oh, the table is full of books, they're not asserting that there's one and only one book-filled table in the universe, and this is the table, and there are no other tables that could be confused with this table. And in fact, that's really not true. And in a way, that's not what we mean, even though that's what Russell would ask us to translate that sentence into, because there could be other tables that are full of books. It's just that they're not an object of concern in our conversational context. So, right, we are very contextual creatures. We are very pragmatic creatures. We are not going to use any analysis like Russell's analysis. Strawson also says this should have been a separate bullet point. I apologize, it's not. He asks us if we can ever really cash out the ellipsis of a definite description. So let me tell you what that means. When we talk about the ellipsis in a definite description, right, I pick out a certain person like the current commander-in-chief, and I can give you many, many, many different descriptions of this person. This is a person who has strawberry blonde hair. This is a person who is male. This is a person who is kind of a fringy Republican. This is a person who has been accused of being a pussy grabber and is a self-proclaimed pussy grabber. I thought I had to add that since it was today I'm recording and it's the Women's March. Right, so there are all these descriptions of Donald Trump, and there are more that I didn't mention, right? There are hundreds of thousands of ways that we can definitely describe this person, and to really have a definite description where we pick out that person and absolutely no one else under any circumstance, right? If we really do that, then that definite description is going to be incredibly long. Now, Russell recognizes this, and it's why he calls definite descriptions abbreviations, but it seems that is this beyond practical? Is it even possible that we can really elaborate and enumerate every single description that picks out something uniquely? Strawson says we can't, it's theoretically impossible, it's also practically ridiculous, it's completely uninteresting. So again, Strawson dragging us toward the practical rather than looking at how to get language to work theoretically. So Strawson is discounting this notion of definite descriptions that is proposed by Russell. Okay, I didn't assign Donnellan, but I want to use him as a jumping off point for your discussion questions this week. I will come in with a Kripke lecture later, but I think that you guys already have a good understanding of Kripke and you know what he's going to say about definite descriptions. Since Kripke is a causal or a historical dubbing ceremony based theorist, he just is going to counter definite descriptions with his causal theory. So Donnellan offers a new critique, and even though you haven't read the article, you can still understand the critique, and you're welcome to dive into the article if you want. So Donnellan brings up a new concept, and it's called attributive use. So for example, we have names of things like the Grateful Dead or the Holy Roman Empire, and as Voltaire said, the Holy Roman Empire was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire, right? So there's something terribly wrong if we follow Russell's lead and try to make everything perfectly logical, right? It should, if you're really a Russellian, the name the Holy Roman Empire should mean what the sum of its parts mean, right? That's why we break everything down into a logical language and put it together, because the parts should add up perfectly, but they don't. Likewise, the Grateful Dead is the name of something that is likely neither grateful nor dead, because it's not the kind of thing that can die, even though we miss you, Jerry Garcia, right? So it seems like we have other ways that we use names and understand names. And so what you see in the background here is a rising new theory of meaning for names. This new theory of meaning is one of use and how people use the language. Now, this was originated by Wittgenstein, and we will read for next week Wittgenstein and discuss that. But Donnellan definitely is shouting out to Wittgenstein here with this notion of use as being primary for meaning. So what I'd like you to consider then for the discussion is Donnellan's near miss cases, right? So imagine this scenario. We are at a cocktail party and you are the host. So you have invited everyone here. I am looking around and I'm trying to get to know people at the party. And I ask you, who is the man in the corner drinking the martini? Right? Now, this is perfectly normal, and an average Russellian would say, oh, the man in the corner drinking the martini, that is some sort of concatenation of descriptions that will then, right, your answer should be his name, and then that description will match onto the name and everything is great. But Donnellan gives us this case where it's like, guess what? Ha! The man you're pointing to, his martini glass is full of water. And yet there is another man in the corner of the room next door who is actually drinking a martini. Now imagine that the way that I have gestured, so I pointed to the man in the corner drinking the martini, and it turns out that the way that my hand is pointing is in exactly the same direction as the man in the other corner who is actually drinking a martini, right? Boom, near miss. So you're going to give me the name of the man who is drinking the glass of water because that's the name that I'm actually asking for in the context. I can't see the other man in the other room. And yet, if you're strictly a Russellian, the other man in the other room who's actually drinking a martini, for whom the description fits, uh-oh, right? That seems like that should be the name that I am asking for. So There is your problem. How would you manage near-miss cases like Donnellan's? That is, how should we determine what is picked out by a slightly defective definite description, and what do defective definite descriptions tell us about the nature of names? The first time for the first discussion, I was pretty loose regarding holding people to the readings, but I want to hold you more pointedly and specifically to the readings this week. You've read now Russell, Frege, Kripke, Searle, and Quine. You can go back to Mill if you want to. I suspect that no one wants to. You don't have to draw from every single human that I've assigned you, but it would be wonderful if you could draw from 3 to show me that you're really thinking about the readings. So that is your discussion question for the week. For next week, read Putnam's Meaning and Reference. That's going to open up the world in an entirely new direction. And you can read Wittgenstein's Tractatus. It's available here. These are most of your lectures for this week. I will see you Tuesday if you would like to chat.